Happy Friday, everyone, and welcome to today's LinkedIn Live. I'm joined by Corinne Bassett, Rinbites. How you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. It's Friday.
Friday does help, and Corinne and I both are based here in the Veeam Ohio Center, and we got a great topic today. We're going to go a little different. I've been working with the producers here on the LinkedIn Live show. We're trying to up the game, so we're going to get technical. Hey, Kev. Hey, Tim, welcome. We're going to get a little bit more technical on these. So we're going to do some awesome stuff. So before we jump into that, though, a couple things. One, we want everyone to let us know where you are from. So drop down in the comments of the LinkedIn stream here, and we're going to do the mapplication. We love building the map. So just drop in your country or your U.S. state, something like that, and we will light the world up green. But before we get into that, the second thing I want to bring up, Corinne, introduce yourself and the topic, the product we're going to talk about here today.
I'm a technologist here at Veeam Software. I work under the product strategy side, and I specialize in the M365 Backup product suite, and that's what we're going to be talking about. When he said he was bringing in the technical, he meant he brought in me.
Oh, that's so true. That's so true. And I that's right. So Rin specializes in that M365 space, and this is one of our most strategic products. It's growing incredibly fast, and we've got a lot of stuff going on with the product. And what you're going to see through some of the other LinkedIn Lives is we're going to build a journey. So the topic today, what did we come up with? What did we call it? I forget.
Start on the right foot.
Okay. And it's not so much right or left. It's more like the correct foot, right? And yeah. So the thought is we want to guide you with some practical information in this format here that's going to help the audiences get started with it. We've got some slides here, so let's jump into it. So first of all, Corinne, tell me, what is M365 and where does the Veeam Backup product sit in the space?
So Veeam Backup, for what we call Veeam Backup for Microsoft Office 365, is a console developed in order to back up SaaS applications like Exchange, SharePoint, OneDrive, and Microsoft Teams. Well, as of version 5, we now support Microsoft Teams. We work in a singular console that allows you to add in fully cloud infrastructures, hybrid infrastructures, as well as some on-prem installations of this product, and then we're able to migrate that data wherever it makes sense to the business, from physical storage to object storage. And then on top of all that, we have these specialized restore explorers that are tailored to each of the applications that we're able to restore in the environment. And I'm pretty sure we have a graphic coming up here a little later on all the different ways we're able to restore and how we aggregate that data back for you.
Yeah, so a couple of questions on that. Actually, no, we don't have the infographic on all of the restores, but we've used it on a number of other Veeam Backup for Microsoft Office 365 Prezos. But one question for you, Corinne, first of all. You said it also can help with some of the on-prem stuff. Now, I already know the answer, but what do you mean by that?
So on-prem installations of Exchange and SharePoint, maybe you're in the process of migrating that data up to the cloud, or you're going in this semi-forever hybrid types of situations. They're able to work all from the same console. You don't have to do different installations of our product in order to back up this same collaborative data platform.
Awesome. And so another way to put that is, I think a lot of organizations, what you don't want to have is two control planes for one quote unquote application, email, some on-prem, some in the cloud. You don't want to have like disjoint backups, right? So it can really help you from a policy compliance standpoint as well. So I want to talk about this installation of this product. So Corinne, you explained what it is, but as we watch kind of a quick installation here embedded, but we're going to go to a live demo here in a bit. But tell me a little bit, Corinne, about some of the components that go into the actual product, Veeam Backup for Microsoft Office 365, and how that can help someone kind of get started with this backup and be successful and such.
So when you first download the package from our website, as you can kind of see here, you unpile and there's 4 MSIs here. So there's 4 different installations that you need to perform in order to get all of the data either downloaded or restored with these application restore explorers. Starting off with the backup 365 MSI, what this is going to do is install your command center, your centralized place to add your jobs, add all of your organizations in that you need to manage, as well as who is going to be processing that data, which is going to be the proxies. On a base install, it's actually all in one installation, so you can run this installation and immediately start backing up your jobs. But when it comes time to restore, you're going to need the extra 3 explorers here, which is going to be Exchange, SharePoint, which also includes OneDrive, and Microsoft Teams. These are going to allow you to get those specialized tailored restore explorers into your environment.
Now, good stuff. And so a few things here. One is we've definitely leveraged the magic of television to process the installations here that you see happening. But like that console, that first one, Veeam Backup Shell, that or Veeam Backup 365, that's that kind of console part. And those other parts are, I like to say here at Veeam, correct me if I'm wrong, Ren, there's a lot of shared technology that happens within the explorers, because whether we're talking about Exchange on-prem for like an image-based backup, and then there's some shared technology which happens for the email and M365. So we've been down this path before.
That's actually a great point that you bring up. And anyone that ever confronts me, like, what sets your software apart? And I like to tell them, well, we've been restoring these applications longer than anyone has been even backing up or thinking about backing up Office 365, because we developed these applications in tailored to the end user restore processes that made the most sense for Exchange and SharePoint, among 3 other explorers that we have in our infrastructure tailored to these applications. So our restore process is one of the most seamless and intuitive on the market.
Yeah, fair shout. All right, I got a note from the producer that the Mapplication is ready. So let's take a quick look at that. And we're lagging here, friends. So we've got Georgia, we've got Ohio on, but we've also got the UK, Czech Republic, Norway, Oslo. We've also got Morocco and Iran, definitely, and then Ukraine I saw come in as well. So definitely just drop in the country you're in, and then also the U.S. state. Let's represent and green it up. So thanks for sharing those who have, and if you've joined now, you can also just drop that in the chat, and we will process it. All right. So we talked about, and one other thing is, one of the things we're doing new here is that we are doing closed captioning, which you might have noticed, and hopefully it's picking up Corinne's and I nice Midwestern Zero accent okay. But you can turn that off by clicking in there, and there's a setting that you can do that. It's probably more seamless to just click it in there. But nonetheless, if it's getting in the way or not helpful for you, you can turn it off. Now, okay, so we talked about the installation, Corinne, but then there's a number of components that go in the mix, and how do those kind of play into like getting started with taking a backup?
So, as I mentioned, when you first install the software, it's actually installing the backup server, the backup proxy, and the repository all on that same machine, which is the basic deployment type. The backup server is your command center. And then the proxy, which you can add additional proxies and repositories to your infrastructure to process more data or scale out based on how many objects that you have in your infrastructure. And the repositories do link back to the proxy. So you can have multiple repositories attached to a proxy, but you can't have multiple proxies attached to a repository because of the way that the data is backed up within this product. And we'll cover, I think, here on the next slide, the difference between just doing a simple deployment and an advanced deployment, if I'm not mistaken here.
Yeah, and let me kind of set this up with a question, because I think a lot of times organizations, we have plenty of resources on the website about why organizations should back up Microsoft Office 365 data. And that's not what we're going to talk about here today, but I do want to highlight that, as organizations go through that journey, the simple deployment, what we'll show here in the marketplace, or some of the other ways to consume this. This is the best way to just give it a try. See how easy it is. And then that moment that you have a situation where you can drive a recovery, that almost proves the value for you, in my opinion. So a simple deployment for like a small set of users, including our community edition, which I think is, correct me if I'm wrong, Ren, is 10 users?
Yes, 10 users.
And that would include their SharePoint and OneDrive as well. Is that right?
Correct. Personal SharePoint, OneDrive, archive, email, all of that.
Fancy. So anyways, that's a great way to get started if you want to try that. And it's free for use. It would Community Edition has like what we call best effort support. It's not like a production level of support. But if you're trying to internally prove the concept, the simple deployment with even in the cloud, an easy, great way to start. But tell us about the simple versus the advanced deployment, Corinne.
So there's actually not a whole lot to this. The difference between a simple deployment and an advanced deployment is that you've installed the software and then you've added additional components because you needed to scale out for one reason or another. So it may be by adding additional proxies or repositories into your infrastructure, offloading some of those load processes to different machines and different entities. One of the next questions that we generally get asked is, when do I need to scale out? When do I need additional proxies? And we have a great graphic and chart here on the next slide on the theoretical maximums for each of these deployments. Now, one instance, that is the command center, that's the initial installation of the software, can handle up to 1 million objects. And don't worry, we'll cover what objects are here just in a moment. Now, each proxy, as we were talking about, can handle 20,000 objects. So you could have up to 50 proxies added into a single deployment. You have unlimited space for the repository, and you're going to want for each of these machines about 8 CPU and 32 gigs of RAM to reach these theoretical maximums. Now, on the next slide here, we'll take a look at some of those objects.
Question though, you say unlimited at the bottom, max size. I'm going to raise my hand, and because I've talked to mathematicians and we're talking about data, how can you say that that's unlimited? Before I go any further, that's my big question to you, Corinne.
Because you can keep adding space to an infrastructure, and object storage allows an infinite type of capacity where on-prem storage may kind of lag behind, especially when it comes to on-prem file storage table types versus metadata to objects.
I'm being cheeky here, but I wanted to highlight that in particular. So the object storage repository that is offered with the Office 365 backup product, that is just really attractive, because if you're like me and like what we do here at Veeam, there's a couple of things. If I look at when I used to administer Exchange, and then even using Exchange here in my time at Veeam and files as well, I was really specific about quotas and size and things like that. But as a user, I've not administered because I've been in Veeam for 11 years now, but my quota kind of phenomena has greatly been alleviated with Microsoft 365. So the thought is, if I were consuming these services, SharePoint, OneDrive, or SharePoint files and email, think about it that way, on-prem, with the capacity capabilities of what the M365 service offers, that would really be a disk buster, So the thought of having this in the cloud, I don't know, am I thinking too hard, Corinne, or do you feel my flow?
I think you've been at this for a while.
Well, no. Yeah, okay, maybe I have, but.
So there are definitely constraints that have been alleviated over times with different technology, and pretty much every technology that's come along the line. And object storage is one of those that really have been one of those mind-blowing types of accelerations that we've been able to do things we never thought capable of. I mean, who would have thought of even 5 years ago, petabytes of data? Who has petabytes of data? Who can store petabytes of data? Where do you even get a file table that can support petabytes of data? And now it's something that's thrown around almost every other topic or meeting for an enterprise environment.
Yeah, and I'll throw another hat to the Veeam shared technology umbrella. And for those of you who are familiar with Veeam, right, you know about what we do for image-based backups, file backups, and the like. But again, there's shared technology, there's shared knowledge both in the public cloud for backups using object storage. There's shared technology for image-based backups on premises going to the capacity tier. And there's shared technology in learnings and economic models from the M365 services backup into clouds. Now they all work uniquely, some of them very differently. That's also important to highlight. But there is consistently across all the products cloud economic intelligence in how the object storage is consumed, but more importantly, how you restore. Everything from absolute portability of our data still applies. Smart stuff. I wanted to just highlight that. You just put it at the bottom, unlimited. You think it's just a small little checkbox, but I think it's kind of a big deal, so I had to drill into it. But tell us about the infrastructure, Corinne.
So one of the statistics we didn't drill into too hard on that previous slide is how many users you can have per job. Now, this maximum amount of users you can have per job is based off of a formula of how many objects you expect a user to have. So you have a primary mailbox, an archive mailbox, a personal site, and a OneDrive for Business. That's actually going to give you 4 different objects. These 4 different objects would then mean you could have up to 5,000 users per proxy on an about give or take level. If you're not using Microsoft OneDrive for Business, maybe you're only using 3, so you can maximize some of the users added into each of those proxies. If you have additional collaborative sites, then you actually have to do the reverse math where you're taking away some of those objects or the number of users you can theoretically maximize per these proxies. I would say most small to medium-sized businesses could probably get away with a simple deployment, and especially if they're using something like object storage, they can offload all of that on-prem footprint off to the cloud directly, meaning that you're maximizing your compute power on-prem and then maximizing your storage capabilities by offloading the massive amounts of data that you can sometimes generate. I've noticed, and sometimes they'll do a hybrid situation where maybe they'll have email on-prem, because email is a fairly static data entity, meaning that you have, 10 megs is the maximum email size you can add. But when you start getting into collaborative sites like SharePoint or OneDrive for Business, you start seeing an explosion of data, people uploading gigs and gigs of data as soon as it's been opened up to them. And that might be something you do all SharePoint and OneDrive off to object storage, so you don't have to worry about, oh no, how am I going to add storage to this physical server and have it provisioned properly and not break.
Yeah, you're hitting on a lot of points that have been pain points through the years. So good points there on the infrastructure side. Got a note from the producers that the Mapplication is ready. So let's take a look at the updated Mapplication. We got Calgary. You know, that's a beautiful city right there by the mountains. Been up to, drawing a blank, but the little mountain town just west of Calgary. It was really good stuff. And we also have Oklahoma. I like Oklahoma, but I also like Michigan. And cheers, Trevor, for I used to live in that city. So we also have Brazil, who has joined the action. We have Slovakia, which, by the way, if all goes well in November, I'm going to visit Slovakia. But yeah, good stuff. Thank you all for letting us know where you are from. So we are going to actually do one quick chat on one more topic before Corinne drops into a demo. So we're actually going to do a live demo here. So we've talked a little bit about how these components work and then how you would kind of deploy it. But tell us a little bit, Corinne, about where one can deploy the M365 backup product from Veeam.
So that's what really, I think, makes the beauty of this product. You can install it just about anywhere you can get a Windows machine up and running. So, of course, you can install it on an on-prem type of infrastructure and do everything in-house. Or, if you want, you can install this directly from the marketplace on places like Microsoft or AWS and have it already installed and ready to go. All you have to do is add your organization. Where you're seeing me pick up inside of this demo is exactly what you're going to be able to see if you deployed from one of these marketplaces. Now, you can also do anywhere that you can install a Windows machine, so IBM Cloud, the Google, name cloud provider here that's not on this list. And then there's also backup as a service, because we have many Veeam service providers out there that provide this as a service. If you're looking for a completely hands-off type of deployment, you don't have to want to worry about egress, ingress costs, you don't want to worry about on-prem footprint. We have cloud service providers that can meet just about every need, including getting the 3-2-1 types of rule without you needing to do extra steps.
One thing I want to highlight about basically the deployment and consumption, there's two things I want to highlight. One is the service provider offerings in the market are very robust, and it's for a lot of things that Veeam does, but including Microsoft 365 backups. And then secondly, that just saves some burden. It's an easy, very little barrier of entry to get started. But the second thing is it almost matches the consumption. So M365 is consumed as a service. So would it not be amazing if the backup of it could be consumed as a service? So we've got plenty of service providers that are going to offer this for you. So let's take a quick moment. We're going to prepare for a demo here. I'm going to pass the proverbial reins over to Rin. So Rin, I guess let me set up what we're going to demo. We're going to demo two things, and she's got it ready to go. Tell us about authentication methods and auxiliary backup accounts.
So I thought this would be the perfect place to kind of switch over to a demo, because we've gone into a lot of information, and I know we have a mix of a crowd. This may have been the first time you've ever seen this product from Veeam, and you had no idea what you were getting into in this conversation.
Hold on. 1 second. We did switch on the fly. For those of you watching at home, we got Antra from Madagascar. Welcome. And Deepak from India. We switched the screen share. So hold on 1 second. Our producer has to rebuild the frames live here. But we did have one.
Started clicking anything.
Well, I didn't want to miss the action. I'm trying to just run a QA process here. But one thing I'll just highlight is when we switched a little bit, the producers work in the back end to do their amazing things. To do such, and we got a request in from the producer, KB, if you could stop the share and re-share it. So sorry to keep that going. Let's see what we got. One question I do get often by the market about the Office 365 backup product is, how does it get updated? Well, I'll tell you, it gets updated often because the service changes a lot. And those of you who read the word from GhostDev last week or week before saw that we had a quick hot fix that was released due to a change and stuff. So the thought here is that this software as a service market, these products, they're very dynamic, and we respond quickly to them. And catch Corinne at the next local event, and she'll tell you about some weekends when stuff changes under the hood. But that's another thing.
Actually, SharePoint Fest.
There you go. We'll be there. All right. So what are we looking at here? And walk us through it, Corinne.
So this is if you went through everything we talked about for installing all of the MSIs and nothing else. This is exactly what you would see if you had installed software. And the very first thing that you really want to do is add in your organization, and we'll take a look at some of the ways that you can add in that organization. So you can do fully Office 365, hybrid, and on-prem. As we mentioned earlier, it can all be done from the same environment or from the same console, and then you can check which applications you would like to back up. You're not roped into always backing up everything. You can decide what you want to back up. It's very dynamic in its configuration. In my case, I do have an Office 365 only environment. And then you have another decision to make, besides, of course, your region that you're in, is whether you're going to do a modern authentication or a basic authentication. This basic authentication is just going to ask you for a username and password, but in some cases, this does not meet the requirements for security within environments. So we're going to actually do this with a modern authentication, and we've made some updates that make this so easy to configure that there's no reason you shouldn't be doing this now. With the existing application option, this is what it looked like before. You had to configure all of these additional components, bring them down to the server, and I will even admit that it took some time. But now we have this way to register it automatically. You create some name like LinkedIn Live Fun, and we'll do an install of a local certificate. Super easy. Let it do its defaults and hit next. It's going to generate this code. We copy this code and it's going to take us to a browser, paste that code in, and then it's going to ask you to authenticate yourself. So we'll authenticate. Now, if there is two-factor authentication here, it'll go through that two-factor authentication steps. Just for time constraints, I went ahead and used a single authentication factor account. And look, it's already done. It's going to go through, generate and configure that application in AD, confirm that the permissions are there for the connection to Microsoft Graph, and that's it. Did you ever set up the multi or the modern authentication on the original console, Rick?
So no, because I used, I want to say it was version 3 before we support, where we was the last major release before we supported it. In the one lab that I used, I installed it once and then upgraded it once and handed it off to Kirsten to do the upgrades. But actually, I want to highlight something about that. Kirsten, who I wouldn't say is a M365 or VBO specialist, it's very easy to upgrade this product, right? Corinne on our team is the M365 specialist, but anyone can, take and do these types of upgrades. So, on top of upgrades, adding the new features, it's really easy to do. So, we take the feedback, we use it ourselves, right? Those types of things, but we make it an easy experience to leverage these capabilities as they change.
And we're done.
Sure. And we're done.
Nothing.
Just my little ramble. That's pretty cool.
So now there's something. We want to talk about getting off on the right foot, right, Rick? So the next thing that we're going to want to do is create your backup auxiliary accounts. Now, when you're doing modern authentication, you actually use something called backup applications versus backup accounts if you're doing basic authentication. Now, this is also super easy, which used to be fair, kind of a pain. So we're going to go ahead and create. We're going to name this More LinkedIn Live Stuff. Just for something there. We're going to do another self-signed certificate, give it the default settings. Now, if we were doing a real installation, we would actually make this about 8 accounts to 10 accounts to start off with to try it with those same names. But since we don't want to wait for all of those to be generated right now, we're going to just create one. But it's just as easy as checking this box and increasing or decreasing the amount of applications that are getting deployed. I recommend trying it out on default with the 10 and then see how that goes. And again, we have this nice code here. It takes us to a Microsoft device logon, everything that we are warm and fuzzy and familiar with when working with Office 365 as it is. And done. It's going to go back over here into the console. I'm going to hit finish and it's going to start making those applications for me. I don't have to go into Azure AD. I don't have to go into the Office 365 Admin Center. It's just going to do all of this while we get to sit here and talk.
No, that makes it easy work in my opinion here. So this is great, Rin. We'll let this finish out and this is again, based on as the product grows, we're getting feedback, we're scaling it, and there's bigger adoption. We believe, and we've had some information indicate to us that this is the most deployed Office 365 backup solution in the world. So just like that,
we're done.
Yeah, we're done. So cool.
Now you're in the optimal configuration to get the fastest backup that you can. If you join us, not this next Friday, but the Friday after that, we'll be covering how to maybe add additional components and create your first backup job. But this should get you off on the right foot if you want to try to work through the rest of the settings. It's a fairly easy installation from setup to backup and restore.
So, Ren, we just got a question hot from Paul. Paul's question is, so can you switch it from standard user accounts for the additional accounts to this application accounts?
The standard user accounts, I think you're mentioning that for the backup auxiliary accounts, each object is actually highlighted depending on how you add in the organization. If you add it in under backup auxiliary account, or excuse me, modern authentication, then you get the backup applications. If you added it under basic authentication, then you get the backup accounts. Now, you saw how easy it is to set up modern authentication. So even if you've set it up before for basic authentication, following through the same wizard for editing the organization, you can switch this to modern authentication, have it deploy the application for you, and then you have options to auto deploy all of those application accounts. When it comes to the basic authentication and working with authentication accounts, it does take a couple extra steps still to get the desired results for the extra auxiliary accounts. So I recommend just switching over to modern authentication, be more secure, and have faster backups easier.
Awesome. Well, hey, Rin, thank you so much for that demo. And we're going to take one quick look at the Mapplication here. We got some late entries because in some places it's late. I have no idea what time it is in Madagascar, but I am glad you are here watching this with us. We also have India checking in, as well as Switzerland is checking in. And we also had a couple more hits in Europe. I'm bad with my map. We got Romania in the house. And then also California over on the other side. We got end to end. It's great. Welcome, everyone. So thank you so much. All right, we are going to switch back over to my share. Okay, let's see if I can get this right here. And we're just going to wrap up with a couple of things. One, Rin, great job on that demo. That's very helpful for us. And there it is. Oh, there it's not. Okay, let me reset that. Stand by. Live is live, friends. So that is for sure. One thing I want to highlight is that one of the things that we have with all of our Veeam products that's really built into everything we do is these community editions and these trials, right? Or free editions, right? That is super important to us here at Veeam. We want to make it so easy to consume these products. And what Rin just demoed is, how you can get started here. So if you go to this QR code, this is a trial, right? So it's fully functional above 10 users for 30 days. And that's a separate conversation from the community edition, which is free forever for 10 users, right? So you can just, what's that, Corinne?
I would like to point out that this is also the same installation you would do for the community edition. It would just, when you install the software, you have the chance to install a license. If you don't, you automatically are under that community edition for anyone that is working out there on the community.
Yeah, good point. Good shout. Aladdin drops in a question. Can I keep Mailbox backup if I deleted the AD account related to that mailbox?
I was just typing him an answer. So yes, actually, anyone that you've backed up within your console remains within your console for the entire retention period. So if you delete everything in Office 365, your backup in Veeam will still be there based on the retention that you've configured. If it's for a year, the user's still going to be there for a year.
Nice. All right. Well, hey, Corinne, thank you so much for joining me here today on this presentation.
Thank you for having me.
Well, I kind of told you to be here, but hey,
voluntold, right. I think the term
voluntold. That is how I roll. And I also want to give a big shout out to our producers. They've done a great job here, and there's a couple of previews of content I want to highlight. Now, number one, there's no show Monday. We've got a U.S. holiday, and a lot of the production team and some of the talent is not available, so we're not going to be having a Monday show, the Industry Insights series, but we're doubling down on these demos. I want everyone to be back next week. Melissa and I are going to rock out modern immutability demo series. So we're going to show the hardened repository and the capacity tier with immutability. And then in 2 weeks' time, Rin and I are going to carry on with the M365 series on, did we decide what we're going to do yet? I can't remember.
I thought I already teased that. We're going to configure your jobs and some extra components like proxies or repositories and object storage.
That's right. You did mention it.
The mysteries.
The mysteries demystified. Anyways, well, thank you everyone for attending, and thank you to our production staff who have brought this content to you. And have a nice weekend, everyone. That concludes the stream.